Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to see you again after a day spent on a bilateral segment in Montenegro. We will meet again for a summit in the Balkan European Union. First, I would like to express my support for all the work that is underway and that is being carried out by the authorities of Montenegro to join the European Union. Things have progressed a lot. Yesterday's discussions were fruitful, and I hope that the next chapters can be written and completed so that Montenegro can join us in the best possible time. Yesterday's informal discussions began and will continue today on the question of the enlargement of our European Union in the Western Balkans. As you know, France introduced the renovation of this method in 2020, which is now based on its own merits. It is the one that we support, which allows, in all transparency, to have the reforms, to have the community acquisition that is integrated by the countries that join the European Union, but with a process that is rhythmic. We have proposed with Germany, and we will discuss it in a moment, which is precisely a process of gradual, reinforced integration that can be done. That is to say, to speak concretely, when a country has advanced and has managed to integrate community acquisition in a subject, that it can begin to integrate the formats of the European Union on this subject. So, we are going to talk with all the countries of the Western Balkans on this agenda, which is obviously that of our links, which is also that of the perspectives of enlargement, and which is very important from a geopolitical point of view because in this region too, the independence of Europe is at stake on the energy level, on the security level, on the level of migratory routes, and so it is very important to be able to move forward. Beyond that, we will be able to come back on other subjects, the plan of growth with the Balkans, and obviously the bilateral subjects. I will answer this question, but maybe if you have other questions in coherence on the international level. We have always defended direct negotiations between Ukraine and the Kremlin. I will be very simple with you. I think that today, it is Ukraine and Russia who can build both a ceasefire and a peace plan. It is the Europeans who can help. As we are by far the first contributors to the effort of the Ukrainian war, and it is the Europeans who must at some point be around the table of discussions for a peace plan, because it is an architecture of peace and security for the Europeans given the geography. So I think it is a good initiative and it is a good thing that there are discussions that can resume. No, not the Kremlin because Ukraine is a sovereign country, but with the United Kingdom and Germany, we are very closely coordinated. We will see each other with President Zelensky in a few days, and we are here to organize the support in the context of the coalition of volunteers and to structure it. In this regard, I invited on July 13th and 14th all the contributors to the coalition of volunteers to come to Paris for our 14th of July to have a meeting of this coalition in a structured way. But we are also quite eager to structure discussions in exchange with Russia on our common interests, that is to say our own security policy, the policy of neighboring countries, and obviously to defend the interests of Ukraine. Romania today exploded a drone in Black Sea. I will be very clear with you. Security of the whole Europe and in particular security in Romania is of extremely great importance for France. This is why a few hours after the beginning of the war in Ukraine, we decided at the request of the Romanian Authority to send our troops to protect your territory. And this is why today we are the framework nation of the security offer to Romania. So we stand together with your authorities and we will do whatever your authorities consider as a necessity in order to protect the sovereignty of the land and the air. I think it will depend on the assessment and common assessment of the threat. Today we see this provocation sometimes, and obviously these drones, incursions. So each time we clarify and we reiterate this full support and we will adapt the position following the request and the necessity. But you can count on us. And this is a moment of recollection, affection, support, and thought. Besides this, I had the opportunity to talk with the Minister of the Interior and the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, And we talked last night, and this morning saw the Minister of the Interior and the Minister of the Interior. It is clear that there is a dysfunction, and that we cannot see that flaws have been revealed. We must now clarify them. And so what the government will do is to get into a situation with very fast investigations. And I ask that they be as fast as possible to be able to clarify the responsibilities that are at work. But things did not happen as they should have happened. This is an evidence, and so it is unacceptable. And so beyond, of course, Liana, and it is unbearable for her parents, and I repeat here, the nation's pain. We must clarify, of course, what happened for Liana, for her family, and also potentially for all other victims. But this is part of the effort that we organize with the government. This for years by the reinvestment that we have made for justice and for the interior. And I do not want to hear any arguments of means in this matter. Because since 2017, I invite everyone to look at the means that have been used in the gendarmerie, in justice. So it's a question of response, firmness, organization, responsibility. So they must be established. But it also participates in this effort that is made on the protection of our children. And today we have a collective system, I would say, of the judicial system, to what is done by the child social aid more broadly, which must be further improved and enhanced. In any case, I will not preempt the debate here. We cannot accept what happened. We cannot accept what happened. We cannot look in front of his family and tell them that everything went well. It's wrong. So like you, I am shocked by what happened and by what we hear. Now we must clarify them in good order. We must leave the minimum time to the inspections that we have mandated to be able to clarify this situation. And on the basis of the work that has been established, to be able to see precisely at that moment, to see what are the collective systemic responsibilities and possibly individual responsibilities, and take all the necessary measures. But we will not give up. Thank you very much. As I know well the mentality of the ladies, I will not say things as you just said, because it is the least good way to get the result. But I think, and I have repeated it several times, that the special operation of February 2022 did not unfold as we were told. And that today, more than 4 years later, Russia no longer gains territory. It has even lost some in recent weeks. That it has wounded and killed hundreds of thousands, and even beyond. That it has allowed NATO to expand on the Baltic. With precisely 2 states that were neutral until then, and that joined Finland and Sweden, our family, to NATO. And it has shown the limits of its defense. Now, my wish is rather to look at the future and to say how we manage to reorganize a dialogue to build ceasefire and peace. And I think that this is the interest of Ukraine and Russia. And how we manage to find solutions on all contentious issues, security guarantees in the long term for Ukraine, and how we also rebuild peace for our Europe in the long term. And that is our collective duty. And I think that this is the moment, given the evolution of the situation. All those who told us 6 months ago that Ukraine was going to collapse, that Ukraine was not going to spend the winter, that we had to hurry to accept the unacceptable, the Ukrainians, with strength and courage, once again gave them wrong. Now it is up to us to also know how to build a lasting peace. And that is what we have been doing now for years. It was also what was at the heart of the initiative that we took in February 2024, when I wished that we would restart to create strategic uncertainty on the part of Ukraine. This is what we did in February 2025, by launching the volunteer coalition in Paris in response to the risk of abandonment of Ukraine. This is what we consolidated in January 2026 by the Paris Summit, where we planned support for Ukraine by obtaining the ultimate American guarantees. And today, this is what must allow us to discuss, negotiate, and conclude, I hope, this lasting peace. I regularly speak with President Trump, and I was with him again 5 days ago on the phone. on both Iran and this subject to tell him again that the Europeans are taking responsibility, but that we now need a collective pressure. And I think that being able to say that the offer that could have existed at some point, which was not made by the Europeans or by Ukraine, but which consisted in saying that Russia must leave the entirety of Donetsk, in any case, all of Donbas, is an offer that has never existed for the Ukrainians or for the Europeans, but it is an offer today that must no longer exist, given the reality on the ground. And this must be affirmed by all. Thank you. I will never make public comments. I want to move forward, and I want President Zelensky to move forward with President Putin, and I want us to be able to move forward with him. And if we want to move forward, we must be respectful to the public. Thank you. On Armenia, I think that there have been interference that has been established. As you know, we cooperate with Armenia to fight against these interferences, these manipulations. It is established, including by our services, that there have been massive interferences from Russia against the EASIs.